Police K9 breaks protocol during drug bust. The reason behind it is absolutely heartbreaking. During a routine drug bust in the quiet suburbs of Portland, Maine, veteran K9 handler Officer Michael Reynolds watched in disbelief as his trusted partner of 6 years, Rex, a highly trained German Shepherd, suddenly broke formation and bolted toward a dilapidated shed behind the main target house. In 15 years on the force, Reynolds had never seen his partner disobey a direct command until today. The morning had started like any other drug raid. The narcotics unit had spent months building a case against a suspected methamphetamine operation running out of an old Victorian house on Maple Street. Reynolds and Rex were positioned at the back of the house, ready to apprehend any suspects who might attempt to flee. The autumn air was crisp, and fallen leaves crunched under their feet as they maintained their position. Reynolds had given Rex the hand signal to stay, but something had triggered an unexpected response in the usually disciplined dog. As Rex disappeared around the corner of the shed, Reynolds' heart raced. This wasn't just about maintaining protocol anymore. His partner's unusual behavior could jeopardize months of careful planning and put the entire operation at risk. "Rex, heel!" Reynolds whispered urgently into his radio, cursing under his breath. The other officers on the task force were already in position, ready to breach the main house. They couldn't afford any complications, not now. Static crackled over his earpiece as the operation commander's voice cut through. "Reynolds, what's your status? We're about to move in." "Negative, sir. We have a situation," Reynolds responded, his voice tense. "Rex has detected something in the back shed. Request permission to investigate before proceeding." There was a moment of silence on the radio before the commander replied, "You have 2 minutes, Reynolds. Make it quick." Following his partner's trail, Reynolds drew his flashlight and approached the shed cautiously. The structure was barely standing, its wooden walls weathered and rotting, with holes in the roof letting in streams of early morning light. As he reached the entrance, he heard Rex's whimpers, a sound that sent chills down his spine. In all their years together, he'd never heard Rex make that sound. The door creaked open to reveal Rex standing guard over something in the corner. As Reynolds' flashlight beam cut through the darkness, his breath caught in his throat. There, huddled on a dirty blanket, was a young woman, barely conscious, with track marks running up her arms. But what made Reynolds' heart stop was the tiny bundle clutched to her chest. A newborn baby, no more than a few days old, wrapped in what appeared to be an old sweatshirt. The woman's eyes fluttered open, filled with fear and desperation. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Help my baby. I can't take care of her anymore." Reynolds immediately keyed his radio. "Command, we need medical assistance at the shed. Priority 1. We have a woman and an infant in distress." His training kicked in as he quickly assessed the situation. The woman's skin was clammy, her pupils pinpoint, clear signs of opioid use. The baby, though quiet, was breathing regularly, which was a small mercy. Rex hadn't moved from his protective stance, but his posture had softened. He kept glancing between Reynolds and the baby, giving occasional gentle whines. Reynolds had seen his partner take down armed suspects without hesitation, but here he was, showing a gentleness that seemed almost human. As Reynolds waited for the paramedics, he knelt beside the woman, checking her vital signs while trying to keep her conscious. "I'm Jennifer," she managed to say, her voice breaking. "I've been trying to get clean, but—" She trailed off, tears streaming down her face. "My baby deserves better than this." The sound of approaching sirens filled the air as Rex settled down beside Jennifer, placing his head gently on the blanket near the baby. The same dog who had been trained to detect drugs and apprehend dangerous criminals was now providing comfort to a mother and child in their darkest hour. Looking at Rex, Reynolds finally understood why his partner had broken protocol. Sometimes the most important protocols weren't the ones written in manuals or taught in training. They were the ones written in the heart. Rex hadn't just detected drugs that morning. He had sensed something far more precious, the possibility of saving 2 lives. As the paramedics arrived and began treating Jennifer and her baby, Reynolds watched Rex maintain his vigilant watch. In the distance, he could hear the main raid proceeding, but somehow what was happening in this shabby shed felt more significant than any drug bust he'd ever been part of. The morning sun was now streaming through the holes in the roof, casting a gentle light on Rex's fur as he stayed faithful to his self-appointed guard duty. Reynolds reached down to scratch behind his partner's ears, whispering, "Good boy, Rex. Good boy." In the hours that followed, the Maine drug bust faded into the background of Reynolds' mind as he found himself drawn into Jennifer and her baby's story. The raid had been successful. They'd seized over 50 pounds of meth and arrested 4 suspects. But Reynolds couldn't shake the image of that tiny baby wrapped in an old sweatshirt or the look in Rex's eyes as he stood guard over them. At the hospital, Reynolds paced the sterile hallway outside the maternal ward, Rex sitting alertly by his side. He'd called his wife Maria, a social worker with the department's Family Services Division, knowing this case would need special attention. The sound of her practical shoes on the linoleum floor announced her arrival before he saw her. "Mike," she called out, her face etched with concern. "What do we know about her?" Reynolds ran his hands through his graying hair. "Jennifer Morrison, 24 years old. She's been living in that shed for at least 2 weeks. The baby girl is 3 days old, born right there in that shed, with no medical attention." He paused, swallowing hard. "She used to live in the main house, but when she found out she was pregnant, she tried to get clean. The dealers, they wouldn't let her leave, kept her dependent. But she managed to sneak away to the shed, trying to protect her baby from that environment." Maria's eyes welled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "And the baby's condition?" "Surprisingly good, all things considered. They're treating her for mild dehydration and running tests, but the doctors say she's a fighter." Reynolds smiled slightly. "They're calling her a miracle baby." Just then, Dr. Amanda Chen emerged from Jennifer's room, her expression serious. "Officer Reynolds, Mrs. Reynolds, can we talk?" They followed the doctor to a quiet consultation room, Rex padding silently behind them. Dr. Chen had been treating both Jennifer and her baby since their arrival, and the exhaustion showed on her face. "Jennifer's going through withdrawal, which is complicated by her postpartum condition," Dr. Chen explained. "But what concerns me most is her mental state. She's refusing to see her baby." Maria leaned forward. "She's afraid she'll hurt her?" "No," Dr. Chen shook her head. "She's convinced she doesn't deserve to be her mother. She keeps saying she wants her baby to have a better life, but she's also terrified of losing her. It's creating a devastating cycle of guilt and fear." Reynolds felt Rex press against his leg, a gesture his partner often used when sensing distress. The dog's intuition continued to amaze him. "There's something else," Dr. Chen continued. "Jennifer has no family support. Her parents died in a car accident 3 years ago, which triggered her descent into addiction. She has no siblings, no relatives we can contact." Maria's professional demeanor softened. "Mike, remember Lisa Cooper at the New Horizons Recovery Center? They have that new mother-child program." Reynolds nodded, hope flickering in his chest. Lisa Cooper had been a success story herself, getting clean 15 years ago and dedicating her life to helping other women recover. Her center had one of the highest success rates in the state. "I can make a call," Maria offered, already reaching for her phone. "If we can get Jennifer to agree, they might be able to take both her and the baby." Reynolds knelt down beside Rex, scratching his ear thoughtfully. "Doc, would it be possible for Jennifer to meet someone? Someone who might help her see things differently?" Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. "Who did you have in mind?" Reynolds looked down at Rex, who wagged his tail as if understanding. "The one who found her. The one who somehow knew she and her baby needed help before anyone else did." The doctor hesitated, then nodded slowly. "As long as he's clean and cleared by hospital security, I don't see why not. Sometimes unconventional approaches work best." That evening, as the sun set over Portland, casting long shadows through the hospital windows, Jennifer received an unusual visitor. The German shepherd entered her room with gentle steps, his handler close behind. Her eyes, previously vacant and distant, focused on the dog who had changed the course of her morning, and possibly her life. Rex approached her bed slowly, resting his head on the mattress beside her hand. For the first time since arriving at the hospital, Jennifer's lips curved into a small smile as she ran her fingers through his fur. "He knew, didn't he?" she whispered, her voice rough with emotion. "He knew we needed help." Reynolds watched as his partner worked a different kind of magic. Not the trained detection of narcotics, but the natural healing power of unconditional love and acceptance. Sometimes he realized breaking protocol was the most human thing to do. The next morning dawned with a glimmer of hope at Portland General Hospital. Reynolds arrived early for his shift, carrying a small pink teddy bear Maria had insisted on buying. He found Jennifer sitting up in her bed, looking better than the day before, though withdrawal's harsh grip still showed in the tremors of her hands and the shadows under her eyes. "Your partner visited me in my dreams last night," Jennifer said softly as Reynolds pulled up a chair. "In the dream, Rex led me down a bright hallway to a room where my baby was sleeping. I wasn't afraid to hold her in the dream." She twisted the hospital blanket between her fingers. "Do you think that means something?" Reynolds placed the teddy bear on her bedside table. "I think it means you're stronger than you believe. Lisa Cooper from New Horizons is coming by this morning. Would you be willing to talk with her?" Jennifer's eyes darted nervously to the window. "The recovery center lady. I don't know. What if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough?" Before Reynolds could respond, a light knock on the door announced Lisa Cooper's arrival. She entered with a warm smile, her presence immediately filling the room with a sense of quiet confidence. In her early 50s, Lisa carried herself with the grace of someone who had walked through fire and emerged stronger. The small Celtic sobriety medallion she wore around her neck caught the morning light. "Jennifer," Lisa said, pulling up another chair, "I'm not here to judge you or make promises about how easy everything will be. I'm here because 6 years ago, I was where you are now. Different circumstances, same fears." Jennifer's attention shifted fully to Lisa, her hands stilling in her lap. "You were an addict?" "Yes." "A mother?" "Also, yes." Lisa reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. "This is my daughter Emma on her first day of kindergarten last month. We made it, one day at a time. Sometimes 1 minute at a time." Reynolds watched as Jennifer studied the photo, her fingers tracing the edges of the frame. He quietly excused himself, knowing this conversation needed to happen between these two women who understood each other's struggles in a way he never could. In the hallway, he found Rex sitting with Maria outside the nursery window. Together, they watched as a nurse tended to Jennifer's baby girl, who was growing stronger by the hour. "She still needs a name," Maria mused, her hand resting on Rex's head. "Jennifer will know when she's ready," Reynolds replied, believing it with his whole heart. Hours passed as Lisa and Jennifer talked. Reynolds caught glimpses through the window, tears, nods, even a few smiles. When Lisa finally emerged, her expression was cautiously optimistic. "She's agreed to come to New Horizons," Lisa announced, "but she has one condition." Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "She wants to know if Rex can visit sometimes. She says he's her good luck charm." A warm smile spread across Reynolds' face. "I think that can be arranged." Later that afternoon, Jennifer asked to see her baby. Reynolds and Maria stood by as a nurse wheeled the tiny infant into the room. Jennifer's hands shook as she reached out, then pulled back. "I don't know how," she whispered, panic edging into her voice. "Yes, you do," Maria encouraged gently. "Just open your arms." The nurse carefully placed the baby in Jennifer's embrace, and something profound shifted in the room. The baby's eyes opened, meeting her mother's gaze for what felt like the first time. Jennifer's trembling slowly subsided as she held her daughter close. "Hope," she said suddenly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Her name is Hope." Reynolds felt Maria's hand slip into his as they watched this moment of redemption unfold. Rex, who had been quietly observing from the corner, stood and padded over to the bed. He gently rested his chin on the mattress, his calm presence a silent witness to this new beginning. "It's perfect," Maria whispered, squeezing her husband's hand. As the afternoon sun painted the hospital room in shades of gold, Reynolds reflected on how a single moment of canine intuition had set in motion a chain of events that might just save two lives. Hope, both the baby and the feeling, had found its way into a story that could have ended very differently. In the coming days, Jennifer and baby Hope would begin their journey at New Horizons. But for now, this moment was enough. A mother holding her daughter, surrounded by people who believed in second chances, and a police dog who had followed his heart instead of his training. 1 month into Jennifer and Hope's stay at New Horizons Recovery Center, Officer Reynolds and Rex made their weekly visit. The autumn leaves had given way to the first dusting of winter snow, and Christmas decorations sparkled in the center's windows. As they walked up the path to the entrance, Reynolds noticed the community garden, where residents grew vegetables during warmer months, was now dotted with colorful winter berries and evergreen shrubs. The transformation in Jennifer was remarkable. Though recovery was a daily battle, her eyes had lost their haunted look, replaced by a determined gleam. She was waiting in the common room, Hope sleeping peacefully in a baby carrier across her chest. The sight of Rex made her face light up. "There's my hero," she said softly, careful not to wake Hope. Rex padded over and assumed his now familiar position as guardian, settling down at Jennifer's feet. "How was group therapy this morning?" Reynolds asked, taking a seat in one of the comfortable armchairs. He'd learned to read the subtle signs of Jennifer's good and bad days, and today seemed to hold a weight he hadn't seen in a while. Jennifer's smile faltered slightly. "We talked about triggers today. Lisa had us identify our biggest challenges." She glanced down at Hope, gently stroking her daughter's cheek. "I admitted something I've been scared to say out loud." Reynolds waited patiently as Jennifer gathered her thoughts. Rex lifted his head, his ears perking up as if sensing the importance of the moment. "Sometimes when Hope cries in the middle of the night, and I'm so tired I can barely think straight, there's this voice." Jennifer's voice cracked. "This voice that whispers how one hit could make everything easier. Just one." She wiped away a tear with the back of her hand. "I hate that the voice is still there." Reynolds leaned forward. "But you're not listening to it." "No," Jennifer agreed, straightening her shoulders. "Instead, I do what Lisa taught me. I hold Hope close, I breathe, and I remember that shed. I remember Rex finding us, and I think about how far we've come." She smiled down at the German Shepherd. "Sometimes I even imagine Rex giving me that disapproving look he gives when he finds something he's not supposed to." Reynolds chuckled, remembering how Rex had recently given that exact look to a rookie officer who'd left his lunch unattended in the break room. "You know what else helps?" Jennifer continued, her voice stronger. "The other moms here. Yesterday, when I was having a rough moment, Michelle from down the hall came by with her twins. She just sat with me, let me talk. No judgment, no advice, just presence." She paused, adjusting Hope's blanket. "I never had that before. People who truly understand." As if on cue, Hope stirred and opened her eyes. Instead of crying, she gazed up at her mother with complete trust. Jennifer's entire demeanor softened as she met her daughter's gaze. "Lisa says Hope is the calmest baby she's seen in the program," Jennifer shared proudly. "The nurses were worried at first about withdrawal symptoms, but she's proving everyone wrong. She's hitting all her milestones." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small photo. "Look what we did in art therapy yesterday." The photo showed Hope's tiny handprint in blue paint, pressed onto paper next to Jennifer's larger one. Below it, in careful handwriting, were the words, "Hope and Mommy, 1 month clean and growing stronger together." Reynolds felt a lump in his throat. He'd seen countless before and after stories in his years on the force, but few had touched him like this one. Rex, seeming to sense the emotional moment, stood up and gently nosed the photo, leaving Jennifer giggling. "Oh, I almost forgot," Jennifer exclaimed, reaching for a paper bag beside her chair. "The art therapist helped me make something else, too." She pulled out a carefully crafted dog treat in the shape of a badge. "It's for Rex. I used that special recipe for dog treats they have in the kitchen, the ones without any ingredients that could hurt him." Reynolds watched as Jennifer held out the treat to Rex, who waited for his permission before gently taking it. The simple interaction spoke volumes about how far they'd all come. Jennifer learning to care for others, Rex maintaining his training while showing affection, and the bonds of trust that had formed between them all. "Next week," Jennifer said, her voice taking on an excited tone, "I start the parenting classes, and Lisa thinks I'm ready to begin job training too. There's a program that helps recovery graduates become peer counselors." She looked down at Hope, then at Rex, and finally met Reynolds' gaze. "I want to help other mothers, show them it's possible to start over." As the winter afternoon light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the common room floor, Reynolds realized he was witnessing something remarkable. Not just recovery, but rebirth. Jennifer wasn't just staying clean, she was building a new life, one day at a time, with Hope as her foundation, and an unexpected network of support that included a very special police dog. Rex shifted closer to Jennifer's chair, resting his head against her leg as Hope drifted back to sleep. In that peaceful moment, Reynolds saw the future taking shape. A future that had seemed impossible just 1 month ago in a dilapidated shed on Maple Street. 1 year later, Officer Reynolds stood in the back of the New Horizons Community Center, Rex faithfully by his side, watching as Jennifer adjusted her podium microphone. The room was packed with current residents, program graduates, and local law enforcement officials. Hope, now a toddler with bright eyes and bouncing curls, sat in Maria's lap in the front row, wearing a tiny dress with canine paw prints that Jennifer had sewn herself. My story, Jennifer began, her voice clear and confident, starts in a shed on Maple Street, where I thought I had reached the end of everything. Instead, it was just the beginning, thanks to a police dog who decided that protocol wasn't as important as saving 2 lives that day. Reynolds felt his chest tighten with pride as he watched Jennifer share her journey. She looked radiant in her peer counselor uniform, the 1-year sobriety medallion gleaming at her neck. In the past year, she had not only maintained her recovery, but had also become one of New Horizons' most effective peer counselors, specializing in helping pregnant women and new mothers battling addiction. When you're in the depths of addiction, Jennifer continued, you feel invisible, like a shadow that people look past. But Rex, he saw me, really saw me. And because of him, Officer Reynolds and his wife Maria saw me too. They helped me see myself again. Rex's tail wagged at the mention of his name, drawing chuckles from the audience. He had become something of a celebrity at New Horizons, with his weekly visits now extended to include therapy sessions with other residents. The department had even created a special K-9 outreach program based on his success, partnering police dogs with recovery centers across the state. Today, I'm not just celebrating my 1-year sobriety, Jennifer announced, her eyes shining. I'm celebrating life, my daughter's life, my new life, and I'm celebrating some news. She paused, breaking into a wide smile. New Horizons has officially hired me as their first full-time peer counselor for their mother-child program. The room erupted in applause. Hope clapped her tiny hands, mimicking the adults around her, while Maria wiped away tears. Reynolds felt Rex shift beside him, and he knew his partner was ready for their special part in the ceremony. But before I accept my new position, Jennifer continued, there's something important I need to do. She reached under the podium and pulled out a small box. Officer Reynolds, Rex, would you please come forward? As they made their way to the stage, Reynolds noticed Lisa Cooper in the audience, beaming with pride at her most successful graduate. The past year hadn't been easy. There had been difficult nights, moments of doubt and tears. But Jennifer had faced each challenge with growing strength, drawing inspiration from her daughter and support from her newfound family. Rex, Jennifer addressed the German Shepherd directly, kneeling down to his level. You weren't following protocol that day, and I thank God for that. You showed me that sometimes love and intuition matter more than rules. She opened the box, revealing a custom-made K-9 collar medallion. Engraved on it were the words, Rex, Honorary Guardian Angel, Love, Hope, and Jennifer. As Jennifer fastened the medallion to Rex's collar, Hope wiggled free from Maria's lap and toddled toward the stage. The little girl had grown up with Rex's gentle presence in her life, and she fearlessly wrapped her arms around the large dog's neck. Rex responded with his characteristic gentleness, giving her cheek a soft lick that sent her into a fit of giggles. 1 year ago, Jennifer said, lifting Hope into her arms, I didn't believe I deserved to be a mother. Today I know that being Hope's mom is what I was meant to be. And I promise to help other mothers find their way back to their children, just like I found my way back to mine. The ceremony concluded with a standing ovation, but the real celebration was in the quiet moments that followed. As people mingled and shared refreshments, Reynolds watched Jennifer introduce Hope to a newly arrived resident, a young mother cradling a newborn, her eyes filled with the same fear Jennifer's had held a year ago. Rex padded over to the new mother, demonstrating the same intuition that had changed everything that day in the shed. As the German Shepherd settled at her feet, Reynolds saw the fear in the woman's eyes give way to a glimmer of hope. Later, as the winter sun set over Portland, Reynolds and Rex headed back to their patrol car. Jennifer's voice called out behind them. "Same time next week?" she asked. Hope balanced on her hip. Reynolds turned to see them standing in the doorway of the center. Jennifer strong and confident, Hope secure and thriving, both of them bathed in the warm light spilling from the building that had become their sanctuary. "Wouldn't miss it," he replied, watching as Rex gave one final look at the mother and daughter he had helped save. As they drove away, the medallion on Rex's collar caught the last rays of sunlight. Reynolds smiled, thinking about how one moment of canine defiance had created ripples of change that would continue touching lives for years to come. Sometimes he realized the most important protocols were the ones written in the heart.